Having restored power to the main sector, Samus receives Adam's next order. Investigating Sector 1. While investigating Sector 1, Samus discovers the body of a lab worker inside a large specimen cage. As she continues her investigation, Samus encounters a small, unfamiliar creature. So that plot recap happens every time you load the game and load back into a save. They give you a recap of what the most recent cutscenes were while the game's doing the load screen. And the only reason I'm notably showing that off this one time is to talk about that's the only remix of Samus's theme in this game. That whole that like started off Super Metroid, plays in some of the credits in some of the other games. That's the only time it shows up, and they don't even get into the main riff. It's just the opening of it, and it sounds good. But I wish they did the entire theme because Samus's theme is really good. With that said, hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Metroid Other M. In the last one we started off Sector 1, and now we're going to further explore it. With that said, I'm suddenly feeling a hankering to go use the bathroom, so let's go use the bathroom. This is one of the funniest power-ups in the series, because there's just this in one of the women's room stalls. This is an Excel charge, though. This speeds up your charge shot in the rate that it charges up. I am not sure the exact percentage increase. In fact, I'm going to see if I can find an exact number on that right now. But it is a notable increase after you stack all the ones you get by the end of the game. It makes all of her combat just a little bit easier and faster, so it's worth doing and getting every single one of them. If anything, I'd say it's more worth getting them than, I'd say maybe half the missiles in the game. The biggest benefit in my eyes to getting more missiles throughout the game is having to use concentration less. And concentration is not even an annoying mechanic to me. I know some people think of it as a pace breaker, but if you do it while an enemy's dying animation is playing out or while waiting for some other thing to happen, you usually can just take a second to do it and it won't do much. Alright, this has always been a little funny minigame to me. There's now one of those chameleon enemies that we encountered last part crawling up to us, and if it gets to us, it'll fight us. You can just go into this little opening over here and bring the welcome wagon. So when I first played this game back in 2010, I was still beneath that when I did that, and that's an instant kill, I believe. So don't be beneath that directly. Seeing it up close like that, I do not like this game's morph ball design. Something about the red spirals coming out of the center just doesn't look right to me. I think my favorite morph ball design is either... It's probably something from the Prime games, honestly. Like, I like the PED suit with all the upgrades by the end of the game. I like how that one looks. I like the Dread ones. This one just feels very empty. Now, we're coming up on one of the most annoying missile tanks in the game. In that, if you miss this, you have to backtrack around in a circle to get back to it, in a relatively wide circle, too, so don't miss it. There's two ways to get it, I've noticed over the years. You can either just build up momentum perfectly enough to completely skip over a hole in this morph ball tunnel, or you can slow down at the last second and use the jump ball. Take your time right here. I'm going for the jump ball method, and there we go. The reason this is an annoying one is once you fall down this hole, that is just high enough of a gap, I believe, that you cannot jump out of that with the morph ball, and it's annoying. Conversely, another item that took me a while to figure out how to get is this one. For some reason, being able to blow up that trash with bombs didn't exactly click with me at first, so I came back here towards the end of the game to get this one. Speaking of the morph ball, though, while I don't like its design, I do honestly like this Samus armor design, but I think I like how it looks in everything else more. Like, I love how it looks in Smash Ultimate and 4. I think the problem with it, to me, in this game in particular, is it's proportionally a little awkward. I don't know exactly how to explain it. Oh, hi there! Sans move over that. Well, that was random. Not often you just see a worm come out of nowhere to try and say, hello! I'm only just noticing that these... I've never noticed that the Venus flytrap enemies have, like, a beak on them. They're like birds as well. That's interesting. Usually I'm too obsessed with the... Not obsessed, absorbed into the movement at the moment. Huh. by and large, if you ever come to a blockade in the road, missiles and bombs are going to be the way to go, as most of the other upgrades we're going to get throughout the game either are extensions of those or are mostly for combat anyway. I've had this door take a while to open sometimes. I don't know exactly why. With that, welcome to the subterranean control room. Weird, the door's not opening. Oh, hi there! For some reason, these chameleons take a second to load in. The Garmanians or whatever. I've already forgotten what the name was that I said last part. Having the two first major enemies we fight both start with the letter G is not helpful in that regard. I remember at one point when I was looking for some of the last items in the game, I think I used the IGN guide at the time. I think they referred to the little armadillo guys as arachnises, which I guess they look similar to, but Arachnus is the enemy from Fusion and Metroid 2 that gives you the spring ball, or morph ball in Fusion's case. They look nothing alike. They roll, that's all they have in common. And that always stuck with me for some reason. Whenever you see me pause like that at a save room, that is me either looking at my notes or checking my timer to see how long I've been recording to see if I should split a part off there. With that, time for a mini-boss. These are the FG2 Graham sentry turrets. This mini-boss is kind of annoying just because you can't actively damage them for a lot of it. They'll try to charge at you and just do contact damage that way, but the only time you can actively damage them is when they are charging up their own beam attacks. And you can tell that's happening when they open up like that and start steaming a little bit. You can either do a charge shot at that point or 2 missiles to take them out. I recommend the missiles just because you can usually get them out faster than the charge shots for the amount you need to destroy them. Plus, that means they get less attacks in. With that said, somewhat of an annoying thing that happens here, especially, is sometimes the lock-on with the missiles can be a little wonky, in that it'll try to target one enemy over another despite you pointing at the other just for some arbitrary reason. And there's maybe a priority system, I don't know. But for beating them, we get our first new power-up for the game. This is the diffusion beam, something that would make a mainstay appearance moving forward. This makes your charge beam have a splash damage effect that in later games can be used for traversal options as well, but the biggest thing in this is that it kills enemies in a much wider range of effects. This means for every encounter, by and large, charge shots are going to be your area clearing, missiles are going to be your more targeted attacks. Use the charge attacks for the fodder, missiles for the mini-boss-esque enemies. And there's a part of me that likes that separation. I do wish that there was still more of this game's combat, but I like this ability a lot. And that opens up the door back at the save room we started the part off in, because, well, we could move on from that part. So let's get back there. Thankfully, it's a relatively close distance, because that also turned on, I think, a morph ball launcher in one of the last rooms. So let's get back on there. Alright, time for our next mini-boss, although this might be more of a proper boss. These are returning enemies, though. These are Foon and, not Mihei, I think? These are the worm enemies who showed up in Norfair in Super Metroid. They're gonna frequently just shoot in and out of the various walls and ceiling holes in this room. And you need to shoot them with a missile to stun them, do a charge shot, and then, well, then you can just lethal strike them and take care of them. I'll give them this. This is their most involved appearance. I believe they do have slightly different attacks, like the one that doesn't have eyes sends a bit of a homing missile at you, whereas the one that does just tries to flail more at you and shoot more directly. My best strategy, stand at the far end of the room, wait for one of them to show up, shoot it with a missile, hope you hit them in time because they will retreat and show back up in other holes eventually. And they should die quickly, but eventually. I had more trouble with this fight when I was a kid because I didn't realize the potential power missiles had in the game, honestly. I was very reliant more so on charge shots unless I actively had to be. Which, part of that is because I used to be a lot more conservative with items in games when I was a kid. I used to be the type of, why use elixirs unless I absolutely have to in Final Fantasy, whereas now, If I'm at a case I absolutely have to, I'll just be like, hell yeah, elixir. Mega elixirs, though, are still not to be used unless absolutely necessary. Oh no, defeating them turns on the Morph Ball launcher. Got a little bit ahead of myself there, but oh well. I think another reason I was a lot more conservative in this game as a kid is I didn't realize the proper power of the concentration mechanic. Yeah, I only have 22 missiles, but that's only 22 until I have to reload. It's not like I have to go find a Red X Parasite or a Chozo statue to restock those 22 missiles in one go. Thankfully, that Morph Ball launcher does bring us right back to this room, so getting back to that save room isn't too much of a trek. There's only maybe 2 required big treks in the game to go back to an area you've already been to before, and both of those are at the end of the game for one reason or another. And given that the way this game wants to make its mechanics work, I appreciate that, because if this game plays the way it does, but also had... What's a good example? I guess going from... Let's say going from Talon Overworlds over to Phendrana Drifts in Prime, and one of the cases where that's a really annoying backtrack when you're going through relic hunting, I would like this game a lot less. Because these mechanics are good, but they're not based around exploration. They are very much a combat focus. And there's nothing wrong with that inherently, but I forget exactly how they marketed the game. I know they were really focused on making this Sakamoto's baby, so I can't remember if this was marketed as being the next big exploration chapter or if it was meant to be marketed as like, this is the next big story. I haven't looked at the ads for this game in a hot minute. Like, the first memory I have of Other M, barring hearing it was coming out through like probably Nintendo Power at the time, was picking the game up at a local GameStop and then reading the manual to it while my mother was in the... It was either a Bed Bath & Body Works, a Bed Bath & Beyond, or something of that nature at a local building that is a strip mall. And I remember being super excited, and I remember having fun. Not to say I'm not having fun now, but my opinion on this game, I don't want to say it's soured, but I've come to grips with a lot of this game's problems, because there are a lot. So welcome to this room. I hated this room as a kid. We have these little flower enemies here, and they'll shoot projectile attacks at you from afar, but if you get too close to them, they'll whack you with a vine. And depending on the portion of this climb you're at, the vine will knock you back down to the bottom, and that irritated the hell out of me as a kid. This one in particular is the one that gave me a lot of shit, because I just couldn't figure out how to shoot it for a little bit. I think I was here for like 10 minutes, which is kind of sad. But 2010, I was young, not exactly the smartest. I was just vibing, watching anime on YouTube at the time. I'll even go into a specific instance of that at a very particular room later on in the game. With that said, you also want to watch out here, because there is an item in this room, and it's one I frequently missed on earlier playthroughs. Just fall down this platform, and you can even see it on screen right now. I think the reason I missed this as a kid had to do with my TV at the time, honestly. Because this was one of the last games on the Wii I played before I got a 16:9 television instead of an old 4:3 CRT. And the CRT kind of helped this game with the atmosphere department, but I couldn't see a lot of the game. I even think some of the image was cut off, maybe. I think I had to change my Wii settings in certain regards. Either way, let's fall down the hole at the top. It's like the only time to do a camera angle like that. And now we're at another forced first-person segment search. We gotta look at these weird little bug larvae in the distance. They're kind of hard to spot on the floor because they blend in, especially on a CRT. time for our next boss fight, sort of. More so a room boss than an actual boss. These are the Key Hunters. These are actually returning enemies from Super Metroid. They're the wasps you fought near Spore Spawn. The thing we have to do here is take out more of those vine enemies I was just talking about, but now they're located on the ceiling in 4 specific instances. But they'll only open up after you've taken out a certain amount of the Key Hunters, like so. At this point, these will just start shooting at you. Need to shoot a missile, I believe, at each one once or twice to break each vine, and the true boss, quote-unquote, will be revealed once we've broken all 4. With that said, after the first 2, we have to do another wave of Key Hunters, and from there, I think you can either take care of both of them at once, or they just stay open and keep firing at you. The Key Hunters, though, do notably spawn infinitely. And you need to be careful with them, because they have a couple stages to them. You can take their wings off, and at that point, they'll start crawling on the ground. And at that point, they try to grab onto you and do a suicide attack. They'll explode and just do mass damage to you, and that really does hurt. I think in my practice playthrough, I got killed by that. And yeah, be careful of that. If you're holding a certain direction towards them, I believe you can do a lethal strike, but just do the charge shot with the diffusion beam. It's going to be a lot more effective in taking care of these things en masse. If I recall, this was another area of the game that scared me as a kid. There was a couple of those. We're coming up on another one not too soon, honestly. The eye with the Broog mask, seeing the little dead body in the breeding room last part. A couple of parts of this game scared me shitless. Hey, open back up. Come on. Oh, God, hi. Not for nothing, I like the game's enemy designs. I think they did a good job updating previous enemies like the Key Hunters, while also making some really cool original ones. In most cases, there's a couple of boss fights I'm thinking of that look kind of goofy, but we'll get to that when we get to it. And thus our boss fight is revealed. King Key Hunter. He'll die to a couple missiles or charge shots, so just keep on firing into there. He'll die pretty quickly. It's almost kind of a joke. It's more so an encounter than a boss, if that makes any kind of theoretical sense, so to speak. Language is hard. Talking about mechanics is hard. My brain doesn't do the word the good. I'm eerily reminded of a part of Final Fantasy IX.
Some creatures use the powers of others to capture their prey. Watching this disgusting beast, I felt as though it was feeding off my power as well. At the same time, a thought crossed my mind. That howl I heard earlier, could this creature have been the source?
Samus, head to the biosphere test area in your current sector. There should be some important information about this facility in that exam center. The other members are en route. Quickly, go meet them there.
I remember distinctly when I was a kid and I saw that cutscene. When the door opens, I saw... I think if that's an energy tank or an energy part right there. And I just went, ooh, shiny! And I think my mom walked in when I said that too, and she was very confused. With that said, yeah, the King Key Hunter fight, quote-unquote fight, pretty straightforward. A lot of this game's boss fights are more so just fights against a unique enemy rather than a boss. Not a lot of them have proper health bars. I'd say only about half the normal ones do. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 5, I think it is, my project numbers aren't exactly lining up for reasons, we're going to continue through Sector 1, and I believe reach the Biosphere Test Sector that Adam just talked about. See you guys then.